Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of On the Wrong Lead Live, where we go ahead and handicap some of the, big racing on the weekend. This week, we're going to be covering the late pick 5 at Saratoga on Saturday, July 12th. We have 2 stakes races in there. We got a grade 2 and obviously the grade 1 Diana, which is, kind of the crown jewel of opening weekend every year at Saratoga. This is we had opening weekend, aka the Belmont Stakes Festival. Then we had opening weekend 2 Electric Boogaloo last weekend for 4th of July, and obviously the opening weekend strikes back. Mark, you actually were not on track for opening weekend. When was the last time that you were not on track opening day?
I will be on track for opening weekend. I was not on track for opening day. It's been probably pushing 15 years, but I figured the third opening day just didn't have the same ring to it as opening day. It feels like we've been here at least twice, and so I was over it.
Matthew, hey. Mr. Naira Betts himself, bringing you in. Now, are we going to have a new track code for Saratoga?
No, we have. Listen, we could come up with so many track codes. This morning, you have to appreciate. I do a bunch of press for local media spots in the mornings, and they start rather early, and it kills me because I've had to act like it's opening day 3 times in the last month. And these poor reporters ask me the exact same questions, and I give them the exact same answers, but I do it with great enthusiasm. But today was, opening day yet again. Trust me, by the end of last week, it was getting squirrely, where everybody's just like, here's a pick 5 graphic, and it says Belmont at the big A. And then I'm like, I shouldn't say that. And they're like, here's the new graphic, and it just says Saratoga. I'm like, no, I shouldn't say that either. Like, it was a mess. So, we're at least Saratoga official, Saratoga Live for FS1, FS2, and on Fox. And so it's, a little bit of normality getting back to things. But, excited to be talking to you guys. And this is easily my most fun spot of the entire day. And probably the entire week.
Oh, we appreciate you coming on.
We really do. No, it's the best one.
Oh,
now, obviously, there's only one reason we have you on, and that's to predict the weather.
Let's talk about it, son of a bitch. Let's talk about it.
So what happened? So after the races finished, it looked like the heavens opened up for a little bit up there in Saratoga.
They did.
It was more the hell opened up. Nothing heavenly about it. It was. No, it was crazy, Mark. What was it? Probably 20 minutes after, maybe 25 minutes after the
probably
final,
20 minutes. Yep.
Race. Absolute deluge for probably 15 minutes, and 15, 20 minutes. And towards the middle of it, you just started seeing, like dime-sized hail.
A little hail.
And so, it was a hailstorm, thunderstorm. But what I will say is this course needed some rain. I know we talk a lot about, the weather up here and going off turf and all this sort of thing. Walking through the paddock this morning, the paddock had brown spots in the grass. This area needed rain, actually. So it was just this little deluge. It looks like everything else is fine. It's just going to be kind of overcast, but weather looks okay for tomorrow. So I think we'll be on turf, and I don't foresee any issues on the weekend either.
Yeah, we hadn't gotten good rain, and God, it feels like 3 or 4 weeks. Kind of had a dry spell. Everything's kind of been missing us. So in my place, we got 0.35. So and it happened very quickly. But it was enough to a little weather, a little rain, and it should make hopefully the surface a little more fair. Felt like an odd Saratoga day today, the bias wise at least. It was not the Saratoga I'm used to. So.
I will say that you do have one pretty good omen going into the rest of the meet, in that Caleb does not have a planned trip up to Saratoga.
That's good.
There have been, I think Mark has said, in only 2 times in his life has he ever seen turf races not just get taken off the turf, but get straight up canceled.
Yeah.
And both times those happened, Caleb was actually on track. Obviously, when it happened, Belmont Stakes weekend, and then I think it happened last year or some point. They messed all that stuff, and then so luckily Caleb does not have anything on the books as of yet. Not gonna say he's not gonna show up, but much like this podcast, it's up in the air right now. So
No, it is. No, I remember that 2 years. Well, last year, I guess that was.
Yeah, Oscar.
And I remember my colleague Kaylee Shapiro and I were like going around the picnic area, getting people's reactions to like one of the big races, and all of a sudden you hear Frank's voice come over the loudspeaker, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't good." And he's like, the Troy's off, and all these other, and I'm like, "Oh," and I'm like, "All right, we got to go back to the office. Like, we can't be talking to people anymore.
Just go hide.
Nobody's gonna be happy about stuff." So that was wild. I mean, that was. Yeah, hopefully we don't have that. I mean, listen, off turf is going to happen. It's the nature of summer racing at Saratoga. But yeah, I hope we can avoid those types of days, because that was just so chaotic and obviously so tough for bettors too.
Yep. Matt C calling the Diana the Duncan Diana. And then Penn State Scott saying opening day pick 5, 43K. What's not to like? Not even big fields. So yeah, and then like
Honestly,
I said, we have that.
Both pick 5s paid really well. That the late paid 43, and the early paid a good chunk of change as well. I thought for the sequence. So yeah, it would be like 750, Josh. But I think it was one of those ones you could have like 3 singles in the sequence, right? Like there was like 1 or 2 hard legs. So.
Leave it to Mark to say a $700 pick 5 paid well. But
yeah,
I mean, value's value.
Oh yeah, 764. All right, there you
go. Comparing that to 43,000, only Mark. But do
you see? Yeah, I have to put up this shit.
Yeah, Josh, do you have a planned trip up here to Saratoga?
Nope, not as of yet.
Only flies to Vegas these days. He doesn't actually come to races anymore. He does to hang out with his friends. He just doesn't do it. No, he's that's the only place he goes. Generally,
my wife and I do one like kind of big trip every year. This year it was for Andrew's wedding out in California. And it was a little bit more expensive than I think either of us had thought it was going to be. So I'm licking my wounds a little bit from that trip. So we're going to see. There's a chance mid to late August I go. Honestly, It depends on what Caleb does, because Caleb's also possibly eyeing that weekend. And against my better judgment, if Caleb goes, I might try and go. But we'll see. I think we were looking at Alabama weekend possibly.
You guys like to come that weekend usually. That's a good weekend. I like Alabama.
So what are the turf races that weekend? I just want to know what's going to be off the turf this year.
What's funny is we've moved around so many stakes races that some of the races that are traditionally that weekend are not that weekend.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I will say tomorrow there's a giveaway at Saratoga, and it's a T-shirt, and it's like it looks like a concert T-shirt, and it's got all the stakes races like at their tour dates on the back. But here's the crazy part: is we actually moved the Troy Stakes after the T-shirt was printed. So on the T-shirt it says the Troy Stakes are run on August 2nd, but they will actually be run on August 3rd. So
Naira, never change. Never change, Naira.
But it's still a nice T-shirt, so people should come out and get it. So.
What in the Amsterdam's on a Friday now, right? Like what is this? Like so many things I saw that blew my mind. The Amsterdam is being we have a work trip. I'm planning the work adventure to the track. We're going to be there Friday the 25th, and the Amsterdam is running on a Friday. I was mind blown. Like stupid stuff like that, where you're like, oh, that's okay, cool.
Yeah, things got moved around because we moved around so much during the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, or I should say the July 4th Racing Festival. Moving things like the Schuylerville and the Sanford and stuff like that into that weekend, so that changes what opening day looks like, and so a lot of moving parts to say the least. And we'll probably probably have something like this next year. But then, Belmont Park will open up and things will return back to normal. And I think we'll see. Well, certainly the Belmont Stakes will return to normal. And
Yeah, I was
then
saying,
we'll
will
see
they
about the 4th of July.
really return to normal? I mean,
Synthetic racing comes to New York.
I would say if you
I
look,
can't wait. I love synthetic racing,
Ugh.
so I'm a big fan.
that's the wrong Matt. That's the wrong take. That's terrible.
I've always liked it. Me and Barry Spears, we love our Tapeta down at Gulfstream Park. So that's I love it. And I think from a winter standpoint, I think you're going to see much better field sizes at Belmont Park in the winter now, because I think a lot of horses from Woodbine are going to be coming down and stabling in New York during their off season, and so you're going to have stronger fields, and you're going to have, as a betting product, it's just going to end up being larger field sizes, more competitive fields. And I understand it's going to take a while for people to maybe get used to the surface, but it's going to help to have those Woodbine horses coming in and, having a little bit of a synthetic form to rely off of. And define normal, it's horse racing. There is no such thing.
And Mark's over here poo-pooing synthetic racing when him and I both had a nice score on a Gulfstream synthetic race when we were at NHC.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I forgot the name of the horse. You'll probably pull it out at some point. Was it Wolfie's Dynaghost?
Yeah, Wolfie's Dynaghost. Yeah. They finally put him on synth. The two of us have been waiting for him to get on synth for 2 years, and they finally put him on, and he wins it 40-something to 1. And we're all sitting around with our friends who all needed cappers at NHC, and we're all cashing live tickets, and we're like, oh, we probably should.
And you're not wanting to talk anybody off the horse, right? You don't want to be that guy.
NHC, you don't be that guy, and then you're sitting there you're trying not to celebrate the fact that you just made a really nice score, and you feel a little bad about it. Yeah, it's tough.
All right, let's get to this late pick 5 on Saturday. Like I said, we have 2 greatest stakes races. We're going to start with the Grade 2 Bowling Green. We have a field of 8. We got 3 MTOs entered. Your morning line favorite in this race is the number 7 Farbridge at 6-5. You get 7-2 on Web Slinger, 5-1 on Corruption, 8-1 on El Razine. You get 8-1 on Harrow, and double digits on the rest. I really do think that this race does start and stop with the favorite here, Farbridge. I was heavily against last time in the Manhattan, but I was mostly against because I thought that a mile and the 1/8 was much too sharp for what this horse wants to do. I think this is a horse, the further this horse can go, the better. Mile and 3/8, mile and a half is exactly what I think this horse wants, and is going to kind of get back to that race, or back to that distance. Now, funny enough, time form here does have the last race as a 127, which is still probably faster than anything the rest of this field has run. But I really didn't feel like it was a good race from or a real great race from Farbridge. I mean, seeing the field that was in that race, you would have thought that this horse would have been able to kind of win that one pretty easily. But coming back here, I think stretching out a little bit will be good for this horse. So I have this as my lone A. I have a couple other horses I like in here as underneath or B types, but Matthew, I'll let you go. Where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, listen, Farbridge, you and I shared the same opinion last time out in the Manhattan. I was dead set against Farbridge in that race. He actually ran a little bit better than I thought he was going to be honest. And I made the mistake of going with Integration, who I still think is having the bad juju of having Shug take Kendrick off of him all those years ago, and still suffering through that. But that was, I agree with you, that too short for a horse like this. I also worry about Farbridge. I always worry about his post position. He's kind of the inverse of a horse like Fierceness. Fierceness, you always want outside, right? You keep him out in the clear. That's when he's happy. He'll give up ground. That's okay. Just leave him out. Let him lope along. Farbridge likes that inside trip, man. He loves that inside move. He loves coming up the rail. He's got a jockey that fits him like a glove in that regard with Joel, because there's nothing Joel likes doing more than waiting for a seam to open up on the rail that may or may not actually open up and then dart through it brilliantly. But, so I sometimes worry when he draws a little further outside what sort of trip he gets. He's not always the easiest horse to ride either. I think sometimes he can be a little difficult at times. But I think he stands over this field in terms of class, certainly. And it's hard to really make a huge knock against him as a top selection. It's just going to be a short price to take. But you look at a lot of these other horses, they're coming off significant layoffs, or they just, are not quite up to snuff. You're going to be making some pretty significant projections. I really wanted to go with Web Slinger as my top choice. That's a horse I've always liked. I'm a big fan of this horse. I think, second back, you're getting on the turf. There's a lot to like there with Web Slinger. And this is a horse that I'll be very interested to see how this race is bet just in the win pools. And I could see a situation maybe where Web Slinger is a price that I would like to, play in that regard. But I think from a horizontal sequence, it's hard for me to get around using Far Bridge as an A in this spot.
Yeah, I will say it is not harder for me to get around using Farbridge in this spot. He will be on absolutely zero of my tickets. My take with Farbridge is always been that he's a horse that just doesn't like Saratoga. He's 8 for 17 lifetime. He basically wins half of his starts. He's got one win at Saratoga. That's when he wired the Sword Dancer. He's not going to be the speed in this race, so he's not going to be able to wire this race. And beyond that, he's just had a bunch of head scratching performances upstate, where he just kind of runs third or fourth and gets beaten by a bunch of horses that going into the race, Farbridge was the horse to beat. And then after the race, nobody pops up and beats him. If that happens once, you kind of go, oh, okay, cool. Like he had an off race, but it's happened a few too many times where I just don't know if he doesn't like the surface, if he doesn't like being in Saratoga. I don't really know what it is, but I just don't like Farbridge in this spot at all. And I really want to go other places. And I think the other thing that is, and again, this is probably me trying to invent reasons not to like a horse that's a 6-5 favorite in a big competitive field that I'm trying to beat. But if you look at Miguel Clement after he's taken over the Christophe Clement barn, and I realize this is not a snap your fingers and this happened. This has been probably a 2-year process or so. Miguel's been slowly taking over the reins and doing an amazing job of running that stable. But they have been using Joel a lot less. And if you look at since Miguel has taken over, Joel is 0 for 14 up for the Clement stable when Joel used to be the go-to jock for that stable. And it really seems like those mounts are just going to other jockeys that Miguel is using. So I realize Farbridge is jockey for quite a while, since way before we knew any of the things with Christophe. It has been to be Joel, but I don't know. There's just way too many question marks for me to be excited about taking a 6-5 on this horse in this spot. So I ended up landing other places, and I think that the two horses I'm most interested in here are both going to be prices. So starting off is the 2-horse El Razine for Todd Pletcher. Getting back to Dylan's been very, very good on this horse. If you cross the line through the last two, or all of the starts that somebody named Ortiz was on this horse, the form comes up very, very differently. This is a horse that is not that much slower on speed figures than if you trust that last out fig, which I tend to do, that Keeneland fig isn't that much slower than Farbridge. And I think this is that kind of lightly raced 4-year-old that has every right to take that step forward, moving into into that 4-year-old season. And I really think El Razine at sort of an 8-1 kind of morning line is really, really interesting in this spot. Probably sits, a similar trip to somebody like Farbridge. And I just think that horse has a ton more upside. The other horse I was really kind of interested in here was the 4-horse, Tucson?
Tucson.
Is it Tucson? We going Tucson? Come on, you can't let me make weird names. Damn it, Josh, you're no fun. Tucson, who is the other Pletcher horse in here, getting Luis Saez up. And again, this is another horse that I think is a somewhat lightly raced horse. Obviously, they paid a stupid amount for this horse. Are they just trying to figure out what this one actually wants to do? But if you draw a line through every race except for the Manhattan, the form looks actually pretty decent. And I'll give Tucson an extra, another shot going long on the turf. The pedigree is definitely there. They definitely paid enough for this one, and see if there's any more there. But I think this is the kind of spot where you try to beat a short-priced horse like Farbridge, who I think he's going to be bet on the name recognition and kind of the, I don't know, all the logical angles. And I think there's a lot of other ways to go in this spot.
Yeah,
go
ahead, Matthew.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say the number 2 is definitely the horse that I had. El Razine is a horse I had marked down as one I really liked as well. That's a horse I've liked for a while, and I've wanted to try to get home in different spots, and so definitely like this one, and you'll definitely get the price on it. And I just think you're essentially second back from a pretty long layoff. I really have a high opinion of the horse Hershey, who that horse lost to last time out. I've liked that horse a lot. That's a good horse for a small barn, but I really like Hershey a lot. And so I think that last second place effort was actually pretty solid. I agree. Should be sitting a similar trip. Dylan Davis obviously won that with the second division of the De La Rose today on a Clement horse, actually on Ozara. Mark, to your point about, maybe Miguel using some different jockeys over what his father was using. So going to be interesting. That's an interesting note to keep track of, I think, throughout the Saratoga meet, just to see, whether or not there's some jockey decisions that are made in the Clement barn now. But El Razine is definitely one that I had my eye on. And then the other horse that I think is interesting more underneath is the number 6 Harrow for Safi. I wasn't really sure what to make of this horse to some extent, but I just thought that horse was interesting enough. I will say we make a big deal about how Safi performs in Kentucky. I did look this up. Safi is 0 for 10 in turf stakes races in Saratoga over the last 5 years. So, and he just lost with a favorite today. So, that not a lot of success in these sorts of spots. But I just thought this horse was at least a little bit interesting, more as an underneath play. And has some interesting form to run back to, has some versatility, I think, depending on how the pace situation plays out. And coming off a narrow defeat last time out at Delaware Park, but ran down to the Barbados and won that race, and has some, has moved up quite significantly from claiming 16,000 that this horse was running in last April. So it definitely has been moving the right direction for Safi. And, you get Irad up, which, listen, that's always going to probably move the needle, as Mark knows, and everybody watching knows. That's going to move the needle up here at Saratoga quite a bit. But I thought one to maybe think about underneath.
I had to Google where Garrison was because I did not actually know. But Mark, you talked about one of the horses I liked, which is the 4 Tucson. Matthew saying that Irad moves the needle. Something that moves the needle for me is when I look at what looks to be your speed in the race, gets Irad off and gets Luis Saez on. So I think that's an interesting jock switch for switching to an aggressive rider. You look at this. This is obviously a $1.3 million purchase, so they obviously had high hopes for this horse, and took a step back, I think, in that Manhattan. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens on the stretch out, right? I mean, you don't like to see, a speed horse that kind of gets out there and then, just completely, packs it in. But, we'll see off the layoff here, kind of second up off of a slight layoff from Keeneland. Obviously the 1.5 mile race looks a lot better. So maybe adding a little bit extra distance and being able to ration a little bit more of that speed might help out a horse like Tucson. You're also getting 15-1 here, so I have that as one of my B's. Web Slinger, I know you guys talked about briefly, and I kind of just wanted to mention something. I think Web Slinger is a good horse, but I think it's similar that we've seen with a lot of these other horses. I think he's a horse that needs a setup. If you look at time form, you look at his good races, they all tend to have a lot of red fractions in there. You look at the Churchill race here, you got these red fractions, which denote a fast pace. And obviously that's where he won. And I mean, he also kind of likes Churchill. Obviously he's run well here in the Saratoga Derby. But that's another race that was, had a lot of red fractions in there. So this doesn't seem like a race that's going to have a lot of red fractions, and it's going to be a tougher race than what he faced at Colonial, where he was basically on the lead there. in that race the whole way. So Webslinger's not for me. I mean, I could see Jose getting this horse maybe a little bit more involved early, but I still think that he's at his short price. Like if I had to choose, I mean, I'm much more interested in taking Farbridge. I'm going to take another shot with Tawny Port here, the other Clement horse. And as Mark has got a bottle of port there. Mark, how are you almost done with that bottle of port? I thought you just bought that today.
I did just buy it today. Isn't this normal? I mean,
I don't know if you're supposed to like just house a bottle of port in one sitting.
I will say
but
port is something you can easily go through pretty quick.
Like, whew, yeah.
So
Super smooth.
For the we'll call them on the wrong lead truthers out there, that watch everything.
Oh no!
If you watch the fabled Vegas stream where Caleb showed up just where we had to leave midstream to find him, where Mark had to go downstairs while we were in the Luxor to find Caleb. After Caleb passed out on the bed 5 minutes after the stream ended, I went downstairs and I was feeling good. So I went downstairs. I went to the steakhouse at the Luxor called Tender, and I just sat at the bar. I ordered a ribeye steak. I got a potato, and I finished it up with a little chocolate cake and a glass of port. So
that sounds absolutely stellar.
Yeah. Anyways, Tawny Port is a horse that I think all his best races have been on the turf. This was a horse that was on the Derby Trail, and then turned into a kind of a nice little turf horse, winning I think at least one or two stakes races. Kind of last year ran good figures, but had a hard just didn't get into the winner's circle whatsoever in 2024. And then they came back in the Pan American. I think he needed that race, and then obviously that last race got washed off. So we're having to go back, right, and look at some of these races. But if you kind of dig through a little bit, you see some decent 122s, 124s there, and I mean to Mark's point, right? I mean Matthew, the other day I was reminded of the interview I did with you. And I was waxing poetic about Joel Rosario on there, and obviously, very Clement's go-to rider for a very, very long time. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Flavien Prat is just riding out of his absolute mind. Sometimes he's just winning on horses that you're just like, I would not bet this horse for any reason other than Flavien's.
You mean like today's early pick 3?
Yeah.
The Flavien Prat pick 3, which 2 of those horses made 0 cents. He's just phenomenal right now.
And Penn State Scott accurately saying, was that when Caleb's girlfriend was on the phone? It was. It was Penn State Scott.
Part of as I'm walking Josh to the escalator, or sorry, walking Caleb to the escalators to get upstairs. Jess is feverishly texting Caleb that he needs to take photos with whoever picked him up to make sure somebody actually did find him, and that we actually did have Caleb contained, and he wasn't just on the rampage, bourbon drunk walking around Vegas. So yeah, that's gotta happen. Yeah, I mean,
luckily we had him contained, and he didn't turn into Johnny Unleashed later that night, because that would have been bad. Yeah. Yeah, I think Tawny Port's got some back races that fit in here. Obviously, needs to take a step forward from the last 2 races. I don't know what's going on there, but this is a 6-year-old. I don't think he should necessarily be on the huge decline. This is kind of the peak that we see for these stayer type turf horses, right? 5 to 6 years old is when you really kind of see their best, especially going these long distances. So. I just thought that Tawny Port was interesting with Flavien getting back aboard here, the way he's been riding, and I think he does have some back races that fit in here. I think you're going to get an okay price. I think you're going to have to pay the Flavien tax a little bit. I can't see him getting any shorter than 8 or 9 to 1, but I don't think you're going to get to 12-1 here in the morning line. But him and Tucson, I think both are live long shots in here. Like I don't want to take something like the 7-2 that you're going to get on Web Slinger. But I do think that Farbridge is going to be a lone A for me in this spot.
I wonder, we haven't talked about the horse at all. I think Corruption's a little bit interesting at 5-1. And I say this just because you go back and look at that Pan American where he almost beat Farbridge going 1.5 miles. Now, there's not much pace in this race. You're right. Tucson's probably going to be the lone speed. But I would imagine that Hobby's going to have Corruption sitting second, which he's won from that position before. And the turf course has been playing well to front end speed. I mean, yes, we didn't have any gate to wire winners on the turf today, but nobody was, a lot of those winners were coming from, length and a half, 2 lengths off the pace. They weren't coming from a massive, they weren't coming from all the way out of it. In fact, you saw a horse like Heredia really looked like that horse was almost running against the track a little bit coming down the stretch. And so I thought that, a horse like Corruption at 5-1 for a hot barn like Mark Cassey, that Cassie's been turning out a lot of winners in a bunch of different races. And I don't know. I think it would be interesting. I'll be interested to see if this horse gets lost on the board a little bit because, Josh, to your point, like you're going to have the Flavian tax and also just the Tawny Port tax. Like people love that horse. Like that's just a popular horse that's run every race that a lot of people up here at Naira know. And so people just are familiar with Tawny Port and they're going to bet that horse. You have Irad, you have Web Slinger, you have Farbridge, and I wonder if Corruption gets overlooked and maybe floats up to something like 7-1. At which point, I think that's a really interesting horse.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Matt. Completely agree.
Cobb with an interesting stat. Joel Rosario is 9 for 20 on turf routes for a 120. Sorry, for a 52-cent return on $2 bet in 2025. So that's a rough go for old Joel there. Anything else on this race? All right. Well, for a race that I thought, before we go, obviously you guys see that we are using, we got good old Timeform up here, which is, my go-to product, as much as I've used other stuff. Timeform has basically been my main PPs for at least the last couple of years. Mark, I know, is more of a formulator guy because, he's an old boomer and he can't give it up. But obviously you can get both. You can get both of those products on DRF, and if you're looking for a full meat package, those are still available for Saratoga. So save up to 72%. ShopDRF.com. Go ahead and support our friends over at DRF. As we move on to race 9, we're gonna be going 1 mile and 1/8 on the turf here, and I had a much harder time with this race. Now, obviously, the morning line favorite is going to be the entry, the 1 and 1A, for, I believe both of them are Chad Brown runners.
Yep.
One which I like much more than the other.
Chad Klarovich runners, so they're both out of the exact same stable.
One that I like much more than the other, and that's 5-2 on the morning line. You got Taraj at 4-1, the 3-horse. Then at 6-1, Navy Seal at 8-1. You get double digits on the rest. Oh no, you get better lucky than good at 6-1 as well, and then you get double digits on the rest. Mark, I'll let you go first here. Where did you kind of land?
Again, I think you've already kind of led into this appropriately. I think this is a really, really, really tough race. Just in the fact that you have these, this co-entry that's 2 5-2 morning line horses. They're both Chad Brown and Klarovich horses. They make all the sense. But if you actually look at what they've really done on the track, they're both way too slow to win here. They're both, on that time form figure, which is where I tend to lean for, especially in turf figures. They're 10 points too slow. Debt limit's a little faster than Move to Gold, but they're both horses that probably need to take a big step forward here. And I also think both of them are somewhat up against, what we've seen. And again, maybe the bias changed a little bit today. I think that the turf played a little more fair, but they're both horses that historically have come from quite a bit off the pace. So are there horses that kind of are running against the bias or what we've sort of seen as a bias as well? So, do they make sense? Could they both win? Sure, I guess, but they're going to probably be, absolutely pummeled into the ground price-wise. And, getting Pratt simped when I'm making a.
I'm hitting it for myself early. I'm sorry because I honestly, I was just like, I'm getting around this entry, and then I saw Pratt's on one of them, and I'm like, well, looks like I got to use both of them. But
you figure you got to use both of them. Okay, got it. Okay, cool. That was a Josh defensive, but the horse I'm actually most interested in here is the and again, I realized I made the bias play, and I'm going to play with a horse that's going to be against the same sort of bias, but that's the 11 horse, Better Lucky Than Good, who I thought was really, really interesting in here. And again, time form figures substantially faster than either the end, the 1 or the 1A horse that has run some very competitive figs, been running in that sort of 111, 113 time form figure wise standpoint. A horse that again is somewhat up against it from a pace dynamic standpoint, but a horse that it makes every sense to take a step forward in here. Other horses I thought were interested in, and I thought somebody like the 5 Gilded Kraken for Joe Sharp, a horse that does have that sort of a lot of early pace, can be sort of a major player early on. Again, you're getting 12-1 morning line on a horse that could get loose in here. And if we go back to this bias that we've been seeing, which is that, turf speed has been very good. It's probably not as pronounced on the melon as it is on the inner, but this is a horse that is going to be forwardly placed, has a lot of figures that play very well in here, and has a couple, last summer, a couple of nice second placed efforts across the surface. So at least handles the going, doesn't necessarily like to win a ton, but a horse that's going to be part of that pace complexion early on. I thought there were a lot of ways you could go in here to kind of get around the shorter priced co-entry and try to find some value in here. So interested to see where you guys sort of landed in here and what's a really wide open, really interesting betting affair.
Yeah, and I forgive me, I forgot to even ask this. So Mark, I know you're on the Tawny Port. You what is that? What brand you got there? Taylor?
This is Graham.
Oh, Graham. Okay.
Yeah, which is what you told me to get. So
yeah. And then I have a bottle of G4 Reposado here for Matthew. Matthew, are you just on the Diet Mountain Dew over there?
So we're rocking the do. 9:43 at night. That's how I still got to record capping the card after I'm done with you guys. So yeah, like
goodness,
they're, many miles until I sleep. So we're good to go.
Well, where did you land here, Matthew?
I disliked the coupled entry a great deal, and so that was kind of I agree with Mark. I just thought the horses they both needed to get faster. I think using both the time form and the buyer numbers, like they just weren't quite up to par with everybody else. I agree with Mark's analysis that like the 5 is interesting because the 5 should be loan speed. And if Jose just divvies it out up on the front end, it would hardly shock me to see Joe Sharp kind of at a big price win this type of a race. And so I think this is a horse that, again, if you're tossing the coupled entry off your tickets, this one makes a whole lot of sense, I think, to include for really just the pace reasons. And yes, you're right. The Mellon Turf Course has played much better to, tracking and closing horses, but it's also just the pace makes the race. Take the turf bias, if there is any, out of it, and just remove that from the equation. You look at this race, and there's no other speed. So this horse should just lope along up front, and in typical New York fashion. I mean, they'll probably go let's see, it's a mile and an eighth. They'll go 51 and change to the half. I mean, they went 49-1 today in the first division of the De La Rose going a mile. I mean, that's insane. So it's just they'll go slow. So I think the 5 makes some sense. Call me like a homer on this one just because I like a lot of his horses. I think the number 3 Taraj for Bill Mott is a really interesting horse. And I know 4-1 on the morning line. It's a short price to take on a horse coming off about a 13-month layoff. But I just love this spot for this horse. And it's such a typical Mott move to bring this horse back, who would run in a pair of Group 3s, not rush this horse into a stakes race or anything first time out. The horse gets Lasix for the first time. We're running a mile and an eighth. We're on Saratoga. This horse has been in the Mott barn now for a little while, has had plenty of works. I just think this one's really interesting. I know the only win was over the synthetic surface at Dundalk and Ireland, but I think this one is a like I said, at least a little bit interesting with Junior aboard. And you look at who this horse lost to those last 2 times out, lost to just an absolute beast in Los Angeles, two back, and then JRB, who's an outstanding horse as well.
Yep.
And so I thought this horse was at least a little bit interesting and is a complete unknown, admittedly. And generally, I'd like to take 5-1, 6-1, maybe even higher than that on a horse that's that much of an unknown. But the Mott barn is firing. We talked about how Cassie's hot. Bill Mott's barn is firing on all cylinders right now. So I think you'd be foolish to just toss his entries at this point off of any race. So those are the two that I really zeroed in on. And then I also I agree with Mark that a horse like the 11, better lucky than good. I worry about the outside post position a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think makes a lot of sense. And I think you'll get every penny of 6-1. And I think that this is one. Again, Miguel and Dylan, they teamed up today for a big victory, and Dylan's been riding well, and Dylan just, it's funny. I think starting last summer, we all started saying like, geez, Dylan's having a big summer, and it just kind of kept going. Like this is now the new Dylan Davis. Like this is just kind of the new normal, and that he's going to win 18 to 20% of his mounts. And, he really, and Mark, you followed this circuit far longer than I have.
Yep.
But what you've seen is the peaks and valleys are gone with him. And there's so much more consistency just day to day, week to week with him, where he's picking up a couple of winners. It feels like almost, he'll have a 2 or 3 win day every week. And, you don't see this like 0 for 27 drought. And then he kind of gets his confidence back and he really, starts running well again. So I think he's an interesting, better lucky than good, an interesting horse in this spot too.
Yeah, no, I was really worried over the 4th of July weekend because Dylan had kind of a cold streak, and you're like, oh, Jesus, he kind of wilting when all the big boys are in town again. Are we going to go back to this couple years ago, Dylan, who had the big highs and lows? And then we saw today, today he picked it up. Did he have 1 or 2 wins? He was riding much better, had his horses in better spots. And I was like, okay, cool, we're back to the normal Dylan. Great. Yeah. So that's very nice to see because he's somebody who's easy to root for. He's such a cool dude, like great human being. So,
yeah. And Irad had a tough 4th of July weekend too. So, everybody's allowed an off weekend.
Happens.
It happens.
Yeah, I really do like the 1A. I think the 1A is a type of horse that that Chad gets. That just keeps on improving a little bit. I do not like the 1 whatsoever, however.
I feel like you need to push the button again, Josh.
I mean, I already hit it once. And I mean, I wouldn't bet the 1 with Mark's money, right? And so that makes it tough, right? But honestly, I think even if the 1A wasn't coupled, this is probably end up your favorite 5-2, 3-1. So, I have no interest whatsoever in the 1. If the 1A scratches, I want nothing to do with the 1. If any kind of stuff happens there, so. But I do think the 1A is a horse that's kind of tough to leave off just because of the kind of, only 3 starts, has improved in each start. I mean, this is just the type of horse that Chad can get going and can get really good really quick. So I am going to use the coupled entry here. Mark, I'm right there with you with the 5 Gilded Kraken. I mean, I haven't seen Lone Speed that I wouldn't bet. This looks to be pretty Lone Speed in this spot. And, if you don't get Luis Saez, at least give me a Jose Ortiz because I think he's another one that's really, really good riding on the front end and will be aggressive. So I really do like the 5 Gilded Kraken in here. This is a horse that has got 2 decent runs over the surface last year at Saratoga, with 2 second places by half length both time. I do like the 5 Gilded Kraken a bit. I'm right there with you, Matthew, on the 3, Bill Mott. You look at the works on this horse. This is a horse that's been just working really well. And, whenever you're looking at time form and you see those overseas figures, I always think like add at least 10 points to those overseas figures. Sometimes you can maybe even go to like 15 depending. And if you add that 10 or 15 points to that 103 he ran at Leopardstown, I mean, this horse is right there with the fastest figures that anyone's run. I think Taraj is obviously in here with a huge shot. Yeah, Mark, your 11 obviously makes a ton of sense. Second off the layoff, and he kind of backed up the figures he was running last year, right? Where he kind of peaked at a 113 and came back off of a 208-day layoff and ran a 111. If he takes a step forward off that, makes a ton of sense here. Curious to see how he runs with a slow pace in front of him. His 2 wins have both had red fractions in there, so you would think that he probably wants a little bit of pace, and maybe he doesn't get it here, but I think he does have speed figures that you need to pay attention to. The only other horse I used was the 2-horse Bee of Courage. And this is a horse that I think at the end of last year, ran a really nice allowance race at Aqueduct, getting a 117 for that effort. And then, they kind of ran him back, kind of paired that effort off of that nearly year layoff at Aqueduct again. And then you kind of noticed that he was, I don't know what happened. Maybe just a little in over his head in that stakes race. And it was kind of a little bit of a weirdly run race with the kind of fast fraction in the middle where it was kind of a slow pace and kind of, went a little bit faster. But, came back and ran okay at Aqueduct just 3 weeks after that. However, I think it was a little too far for this horse. I feel like this horse's best runs have been a mile 16th, mile and an eighth. So I think the cutback from that last effort, I think it makes him a little interesting in this spot. Obviously, JJ stays aboard. And I always tell Mark, whenever you see, JJ reminds me a lot of like Mike Smith, right? Whenever you see him hop aboard a horse for a trainer, maybe he doesn't ride very often, you kind of got to look and be like, all right, there's got to be something here. Like, because there's not, JJ ain't getting out of bed for, to get on a horse that's got no shot. So, you've seen it with Mike Smith. And what's funny now is I feel like Mike Smith always had this, has always been seen as a dirt rider, right? He's a dirt rider. He's got to be on the front end, right? Like that's just what he's got to do. But man, I'll tell you, if you've watched Santa Anita at all the last year, he's had some sneaky good turf rides on just absolute bombs. And I like it reminds me a little bit of JJ. Like when JJ was riding for Morley all the time before people kind of caught on to that. You were getting prices on JJ Morley, and then Mark decided to just kill that angle for somehow.
I couldn't keep my mouth shut, so now all of a sudden everybody knows about it, and
But yeah, I thought the 2 here was interesting, and obviously now I'm going 5 wide in this race, and I'm using the the 2 short prices, but I did think this is a pretty tough race. I could see a lot of horses in this race winning. So I have the 1, 2, 3, 5, 11 in some way, shape, or form in this race, and I'm almost hoping that this 1A scratches because then that's gonna make my life a lot easier. But and then I see Penn State Scott saying Mark and Andrew leaving the 1 off their horizontals. But what happens if Pratt has 3 wins going into the pick 5? You guys still leaving this horse off? And Mark said yes.
Awesome. Absolutely. Even more so if Pratt has 3 wins.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's because he won the first 3. I don't think he won another one the rest of the day today.
He
right?
did not.
Yeah.
Nope.
So
yeah.
The by the way, I did like Josh your nearly your like I think it was a Christy Turlington quote of I don't get out of bed for anything less than $50,000 back in like the 1990s when she would say
Was that Turlington or Kate Moss?
Maybe it was Kate Moss. It was one of the it was one of the '90s supermodels. I
One of the
remember.
90s supermodels.
Maybe it was Linda Evangelista actually, or something like that.
Oh, it
But
could
yeah,
have
it
been.
was,
That could have been. Yeah.
But the other, what I was also going to bring up was talk about some names coming back from the past. Victor Espinoza riding up here at the spot, this week. So Victor, it's been something else to see Victor on a few different horses. A lot for Wesley Ward actually. So kind of cool. I know Jose Santos Jr. is his agent and helping him kind of make a little bit of a comeback, and so that's good to see.
Linda Evangelista was the quote, Matthew.
Damn it!
Nailed it.
Matt was right. Nice call.
We don't wake up for less than $10,000 a day.
So. Love it. I wish how I live my life. Hashtag goals.
I thought that's how Sarah lives her life.
I don't even want to get into it. I've been letting that damn dog out so much. It's out of yeah. I'll give her $5 to wake up and let the dog out. So,
but the dog is so adorable. Her dog is so cute.
Yeah, and you know what, Mark? The dog doesn't pay any fucking rent either. The dog just is just sloughing around, not paying rent, not paying for the groceries, just howling his ass off, just walking away. And I'm just like, something, at least, chip in a little bit from time to time when you have a chance. Just nothing.
So
nothing from that dog.
That dog sings you the song of his people a lot, is what you're kind of implying?
She's Cora's adorable. She's very, very sweet. But she is insane.
So pretty. And, they are. All Huskies are. All of them are.
Nuts.
They're nuts.
And,
just nuts.
Yeah. So I took her out the other day, and she's like getting ready to do her business. And I'm like, sweetheart, you chose to do it right next to a very busy road. And I'm sorry that there's a car going by every 2 seconds that causes you to reset your entire bodily function. And so we just stood there for about 10 minutes until there was a lull in traffic. And I was like, all right, this is what my life is. And I'm like watching race 2 on the Naira Bets app. And I'm like, not even I'm just like, I need to get back to work, Cora. Like, can we squeeze this one out? But no, apparently not. So this is my life. Funny. Very glamorous.
Anything else on race 9?
No.
All right, race 10 then. We got a 7 furlong dirt allowance race here. And your morning line favorite is General Partner at 5-2. You get 7-2 on Scotland. You get 6-1 on Little Knee, 8-1 on 8-1 on 24 Mamba. 8-1 on Luminaire, 8-1 on Run and Son of a Gun. You get double digits on the rest. Matthew, where did you land here?
This is a tough race. I really, really, really wanted not to like the 4 at all, and I really wanted to try to beat General Partner because I don't love this horse, and I usually try to play against this horse in my experience, and that usually is profitable, actually. The problem is everybody else has a little bit of a question mark because so many of these horses are coming back from layoffs or have just fallen out of form a little bit recently. I took a long look at a horse like Scotland for Bill Mott, who I've loved that horse for a long time. I really like this horse. I don't love the 7-2 morning line price. I wish that horse was 6-1, 8-1. Then that horse would absolutely be a horse I would want to use. Coming off the bench is a little bit of a question mark for this one. Has never won off. Won in debut, but hasn't won off kind of a longer layoff like you saw last year. And so just a couple of questions there, but really like this one a lot. Horse like Little Knee, I'm not sure what to do with this horse. I think that one just ran its best race against Bookham Dano and just has really never gotten back to that form since. And again, coming off of a really long layoff. Now, admittedly, those are 2 hot barns, Bill Mott for Scotland and Mark Cassidy for Little Knee. So maybe you figure, hey, the hot barn kind of takes them over the top there. And then the other horse that I really like, who again is coming off of a layoff, is the number 7 Illuminaire for Todd Pletcher. I've always liked this horse. And again, I'm willing to draw a line through that Mr. Prospector. We were off Lasix, which maybe this horse just runs better with Lasix. That seems pretty obvious at this point. We're getting Lasix back now. And I think 8-1 is more than a fair price. Louis Saya is up. And I don't know. I think that horse is a little bit interesting And so I'm probably gonna. This is one of those legs where I'm gonna go like too deep with like General Partner and Illuminaire or something like that. Like I'm not gonna spread too much because I feel like you can talk yourself into about 4 or 5 different horses in this race, and then you're stuck in a position. It's like, well, do I use General Partner and 3 or 4 other horses? And I don't want to get caught in that sort of a position. So if I use General Partner on my ticket, I really only want to go to maybe one other horse that's a bit more of a price to try to catch that, rather than spreading with the next 3 most logical choices.
Yeah, I took it the same way as you did, Matthew, and like I kind of looked at what I did the leg before, and I'm like, all right, General Partner in Scotland, I'm gonna let those horses beat me in this spot.
Yeah.
General Partner, obviously he's not coming off a long layoff, right? Which I think a lot of the horses you mentioned, and a lot of reasons why I had tossed a bunch of the horses you'd mentioned is because of the long layoffs and just some of these other horses have been running. But one thing I've noticed about General Partner is he seems to, I mean, to quote our friend Caleb, if I can find it real quick, he's had a few too many candy ass trips, as Caleb likes to talk. And if you kind of look at him, like he's come up against these blue fractions consistently, where he's been forwardly placed on the pace or just off, and they're just kind of loping along at 7 furlongs. And it's like this should not happen in this race. If he gets another candy ass trip in this race and wins, like so be it. But I think there's a fair bit of speed in here. Like the 6 Light Man looks to be like your fastest horse early. Gets Kendrick aboard. I mean, this horse should just pop out the gate and get a half length head start before anybody else even gets going. And then like Illuminaire's got speed. The 8 Running Son of a Gun's got a little bit of speed. 24 Mamba's got speed. So I don't think General Partner is going to get that. Oh, I get to sit in second off a soft pace and win the race here. So I think he's going to have a little bit harder of a time in this race. The 224 Mamba I'm actually very, very interested in, because this is a race that does project a fast pace, and this is a horse that has sat close to these fast paces and has actually won. If you look at the race 2 back at Aqueduct, 7 furlongs, they went pretty fast there early, and this is the horse that battled and won and drew away actually by 2.5 lengths in that race. Came back a month later, at 6.5 furlongs, ended up just missing the break, stumbled at the break, and was just basically out of the race from the beginning. We crossed a line through that. That 117, probably good enough or close to good enough to win here, time form wise. So at 8-1, I'll take a shot with 24 Mamba. And then another horse that I had mentioned earlier, the 8 Running Son of a Gun, is coming off a little bit of a layoff, but is a horse that I kind of like in this race. Kind of, like I said, to kind of just track off that pace, right? It's got Joel Rosario aboard. He's going to kind of sit off of it. And I think this is a horse that's kind of been a little bit snake bitten in that he hasn't really gotten a ton of pace to run into consistently. So I do think that, if you kind of look back through some of his races, he's got figures that fit, seems to always just kind of miss. Mark will probably say, oh, this is the horse that hates getting his picture taken. I think this is the horse that probably, if he gets a bit of a setup, could be very, very dangerous at a little bit of a price. So I'm going to take a shot against short prices here. I'm only going to use 2 horses. I'm going to use 2 8-1s here. I'm going to use the 2 24 Mamba. I'm going to use the 8 Running Son of a Gun. Mark, where you landed?
I'm going to be pretty spready here, but I'm going to be somewhat spready along horses you've already talked about. Horses like 24 Mamba, General Partner. I think both those horses make a lot of sense. Obviously, General Partner is your horse for course. And everybody knows I love everything that is Tom Morley. So love me some 24 Mamba. But the one horse, obviously those are my 2A horses. You guys have talked about a bunch of my Bs. The only horse we haven't really talked about that I think we should mention is the 6 horse Light Man with Kendrick up. This is a horse that's going to be probably forwardly placed, but probably not on the lead. But this is a horse that doesn't necessarily need the lead to win. If you look at those wins, this is a horse that tends to do do his best running when he sits just off the pace. Second off the layoff here, which is normally kind of that improvement line. And Kendrick has ridden this horse really well, and I really love Kendrick. I think Kendrick is a chronically underrated jock. So I think this is a horse that probably sits a pretty nice trip. It has a lot of upside, in this spot. So, it's a horse I want, kind of as a B sort of type. So 24 Mamba, general partner on top. I'm going to have a bunch of horses. Josh mentioned Running Son of a Gun, who's definitely going to be one that's kind of a B type for me. But the one you didn't mention was Lightman, who I think is an interesting player, B type horse, but a horse that probably needs a little bit of a setup, but might kind of trip out here and get a really nice one. So nothing creative beyond that for new horses that I feel I need to add.
Anything else on this race?
Nope.
Slow and Steady saying Running Son of a Gun owes me a lot of money.
There's a few of us that are in the same category.
All right, let's move on to race 11, the grade 1 on the card, the Diana, mile and the 1/8 on the inner turf. And this is a race that Chad Brown has had a stranglehold on for quite some time. And he is not the favorite in this race. Your morning line favorite at even money is She Feels Pretty. And then you get 5-2 on Excellent Truth, 9-2 on Dynamic Pricing, 6-1 on Be Your Best, 8-1 on Choicia, and 20-1 on Lady Claypool. Mark, where did you land here?
She Feels Pretty wins for fun. Next race.
All right, Matthew.
She Feels Pretty is my first toss.
Ooh.
I think the horse has been beating a bunch of tomato cans, and I don't think this horse has beaten anyone of note. I like She Feels Pretty. I love the story. I love the horse. I love the fact that this horse has been just really running so consistently, going for 5 straight wins. I don't really think much of the competition she's been going up against. And on the figures, at least on Bayer, and I'm interested in what Timeform says, on Bayer, she shows no discernible advantage over the rest of the field at all. So, to take a short price on a horse like that, I'm just not interested. I think, Chad's won this, 8 of the last 9 years, I think, this race. So, for me, Excellent Truth is a horse that I'm interested in, the 4, which is the main Chad. I know we should probably be talking about the other Chad, Dynamic Pricing, because it's always the other Chad who ends up winning these types of races. But Excellent Truth is one who, I was certainly a little bit, I don't want to say snake bitten, but had a really tough trip in that first start in North America, and was probably the best horse, ran the best race that day, and was probably the best horse in that race, and just came up short against Choiza. Then comes back, runs over a yielding turf course. Again, I'm willing to kind of excuse that. It ran well, admittedly, over a yielding turf course. Not like the horse turned in a bad effort, but again, we're going to probably be fast and firm. And so I just think this one in a short field should get a good trip. You have Flavian up. And I just think at 5-2, if you can get second choice here, that's great, which I think you will, because She Feels Pretty is going to be the favorite come post time. Dynamic Pricing, the 5 is a little bit interesting. But I'll be honest, the horse that I think is really kind of the most interesting one, particularly with this being on the inner turf course, is the number 6, Be Your Best, who Safi has kind of turned around. And it's no great mystery at what he did with this horse. He just put the horse in the lead and he said, go. And this horse likes to run up front. And you look at the running lines and they are markedly different than they were when this horse ran for Horacio de Paz. And he put this horse up on the front end, and this horse just has responded so much better. There's no other speed in this race. I think Be Your Best is lone speed up front. I think could be dangerous at a little bit of a price. But for me, I'll probably go 4, 5, 6 in this race and try to beat She Feels Pretty and toss her from my tickets.
Well, I'm going to split the difference between you two guys. I have 1A.
That's why we
You're
have three
Caleb.
people. This is the great
I
part.
I have 1A and 1B. On time form, she feels pretty. Is basically a length faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
So I'll take she feels pretty as my lone A in here. But I do think if she loses, it's going to be the old Naira special with number 6 Be Your Best. Irad on a board. I mean, this is a horse that when this horse gets the lead, this horse wins. I mean, I just this horse wins. The Gamely got the lead, won. Didn't get the lead in the Jenny Wiley, lost. I mean, it won the Pegasus Philly Mare Turf off the lead. But going back to the Grade 3 Long Island, Frankie gets his horse on the lead, wins. I mean, this is just a horse that when she's aggressively ridden, she wins. And as much as I just don't understand why Irad does what he does sometimes on speed horses, looking at this race, the only this is a no-brainer. This Be Your Best should be on the front end, and I think that the only horse that's going to be able to catch her is going to be She Feels Pretty. I did give a little bit of a look to Choisia, off that Jenny Wiley, but kind of came back in that just a game, and I get it was a lot sharper of a race. So I don't know. It was a horse that I kind of gave a look to, but yeah, I just think Be Your Best is just going so good right now. I think she's going to be tough. And honestly, like if I play the Naira contest, one of my big plays will probably be some type of 1-6 exacta box or some kind of Dutch play there with those two horses, because I really do think that's all I need in this race.
It is crazy to see the fractions that Be Your Best ran in the Gamely. When, I mean, what did she go? 109 and 3 to the 6 furlongs? I mean, and granted, it was out at Santa Anita. You could go a lot faster out there, and the speed is going to hold a lot better. But, she was also, I think at one point, like 4 lengths clear of the field. Like she just scooted away from everybody. And just, she's an impressive horse. And I just, I agree with you, Josh. I think it could easily be the Naira special. And I think in a short field, I actually hope Irad kind of lets it out a notch and actually opens up like 2 or 3 on this field and just kind of lets her run and just get super relaxed, and then just around the turn starts to maybe accelerate a little early. And and that's when you can really demoralize some of these horses, because if you can get the jump on the lead and then suddenly you're 5 lengths up, and all of a sudden it just changes the whole complexion of the race. And I hope he does something like that, because she's got the speed to be able to do it in this spot against this particular group.
Yeah, there was a race. I forgot what it was last week, I think, and I saw David Aragona post like, "That's how you ride a speed horse." Right.
Yeah.
And it was the exact same thing, right? Like it wasn't like, hey, let's get the lead and then just choke the horse. It's like, no, let's get the lead and let this horse run, do what it wants to do, get comfortable on the lead, and then the horse just kept going. And I do think that's what we need to see, I think, from the 6 Be Your Best.
Yeah.
So
and Irad sometimes can let horses go a little too fast up front. So that might not be the worst of all things,
I was going to say, so you're aiming for the Cogburn trip then?
Let's go 42 to the half. Why not? Like, let's just try to set a land speed record while we're at it. Cool. Although
Anything
that was
else on
also
this race?
Mark, you and I we liked Starlust that weekend.
We both did. We were both all over it. Yeah. I think we both made the minimum on it. So yeah,
we were both. Yes, we did. But we were both thrilled with the result. So.
It was great.
Anything else on this race? All right. So we end on a turf sprint. Matthew, your favorite. We're going to be going 5.5 furlongs here on the turf. And your morning line favorite in this race is the 3 My Divine Spirit, a first-time starter at 7-2. You get 4-1 on Girls Rock. And then you get 6-1 on Gellhorn, 8-1 on Panache, 8-1 on Regleton, and then I believe you get double digits on everybody else. Matthew, where did you land here?
Man, this is a spread race, and this is a tough one to narrow down. I mean, I think you could go a few different directions. The two horses that stuck out to me in this one were that I'm definitely using on my tickets are the 1 and the 9. We'll start with the 1, Regalton for George Weaver. This one's getting on turf for the first time after debuting on the synthetic. I don't love the inside post position in turf sprints, but this horse has really good early speed. Louis Sai is up. I think Louis gets this horse out. Lost to a horse, Luna Luska, in debut. Interestingly enough, that horse switched over to the turf next time out, won, and then came back to actually win a stakes race in a turf sprint at Horseshoe Indianapolis the next start after that. So lost to a pretty accomplished turf sprinter already. And I just, George Weaver's horses, I think, tend to run pretty well. He won a race today. And so I think that, he's one that I just tend to trust in these turf sprints a fair amount. And then the other one that I wanted to at least mention, and I have a whole bunch of Bs in this race, but that I'm sure you guys will probably touch on, and so I don't want to, belabor those points. But the number 9 Gellhorn for Danny Gargan. Danny's very good second maiden start. This is a $12,000 or this is a volatile who stands for 12,500 who sold for $250,000. Blinkers are coming on. Horse debuted on the dirt, but it was supposed to be a turf race. And you pick up Katie. Katie Davis stays aboard. The third place horse came back to win next time out. Practical Love for Bill Mott. That horse looked real good, winning next time out. And so I think that I just I'm going to take a shot with Gellhorn there at 6-1. But like I said, I think there's a few different ways to go. I'm not thrilled with a horse like My Divine Spirit at 7-2. Just it feels like such an unknown in this type of a race. But interested to hear where you guys ended up going in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting because Matt sort of mentioned the that 10 horse that that Johnny V wired on. That was I think was it a Gargan horse, and if Katie Davis's horse had broken, she probably actually beats that horse in that race. So there's a lot of ways you can go in this race. Really, really interesting, really wide open affair. I think the first time starter, the My Divine Spirit, the 3. Sure, makes some sense. It's Chad, it's Flavian, right. There's a lot to like there. I think the horse that was most interesting is She Wants War, the 4 for me. The Wes Ward horse. Obviously, we know Wes has been absolutely a filthy win percentage the past probably couple of months in Naira. I know down at Aqueduct he was winning at like 40% or something stupid. In a horse with a ton of early foot, and I think oftentimes in these turf sprints, especially at the maiden level, if you break and you kind of break on top, you sort of wire these at times. So, I think, though both those horses are super interesting. I like Matt's 9. I like some horses like, the 10 horse Panache for Cher DeVoe. Finally getting a real jockey with it was the Jose Ortiz. And when Jose gets up for Sherry, tends to be good things happen. Man, there's so many ways to go in here. It just felt like one of those sprint type or those spread type races. I don't have a solid opinion. I don't have a price that I really love. I just think you need coverage here. You need to be live to a lot of horses going into this leg. You can take spots in other, you pick horses, or you can get a little more cute in earlier races. You just kind of need the coverage here to finish out this pick 5, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the workout reports say tomorrow on this 3 horse, My Divine Spirit. I don't know if this is a horse I'm going to be able to leave off as of right now, but I do think that, Flavian gets aboard for Chad. That combination hits at such a ridiculous rate. I think it'll be tough to leave off, but turf sprints aren't necessarily Chad's forte, so maybe a bit of a soft. You can make a bit of a soft fade on the 3. I'm with you, Matthew, and I think Mark, you were probably there too. I also see Slow and Steady'd say Weaver, so I assume he likes the 1, Regalton. I think that You know, this
I
is
said I said Gargan, and I meant Weaver that earlier when I was talking.
Oh, okay. I thought he meant.
Yeah,
I thought he meant he
that was
likes
me
the
screwing-
Weaver horse.
Yeah, I meant Katie almost got up with a Weaver horse today, and I misspoke. Sorry.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I love the one in this spot because this is something that we've started to see George Weaver do with these horses. Run them on the synthetic, and if they just absolutely blow the doors out, he's shipping them over to Ascot. You know, I mean, he's done it with 2-year-olds. I thought, was there a 3-year-old he shipped over this year? I don't remember, but I think Regalton, those Gulfstream turf synthetic races, I think come back pretty salty. So especially like early in the season. So I definitely do think that this is a horse to kind of watch out for here. I think the horses that have some starts, obviously the 4 She Wants War. Walter got this horse to break and, ended up finishing 4th. It is a horse that's just missed twice, but those are 2 pretty big time form figs that are kind of hard to ignore. So I'm gonna have the 4 on my tickets. I think the 6 Girls Rock for Mr. Beckman, the man with the initial, this is another horse that I think the figure wise seems to really be in there. They tried kind of a change of tactics last time to come from off of it, but interesting to see what'll kind of happen here with the 6 Girls Rock. Obviously, the 9 I think makes a ton of sense here as well that you guys had mentioned. Kind of broke outward at the start. And on a race that was washed off, right? So this is a horse that I think they were originally trying to get on the turf, weren't able to get there, coming back here, getting back on the surface that they want to get to. So I thought that last race kind of missing the break, and I could definitely see a jump forward with this horse getting onto the correct surface. So I'm going to use some combination of the 1, 3, 4, 6, and 9 in this race, and hopefully I'm live into this race, and I got 5 horses that'll get me home. Matthew, where did you said you had a couple other horses you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit on them. The 4 certainly is one that I'm just not going to leave off my tickets, and the 10 as well for Cherie just makes a lot of sense. So I'll probably end up going 1, 4. I hate leaving the Chad horse off, but I just think I have to at this point. And Josh, you're right that it's not really like turf sprints really aren't his thing. So I'm probably going to try to toss that one to try to formulate a little bit of value in this last leg and maybe leave myself a little exposed. But if we've made it this far, something, let's tightrope walk it all the way to the end. And so I'll probably end up going 1, 4, 9, 10 in all likelihood. So that's going to be the way I'll play it.
Anything else on this race?
Sure.
Nice. Anything on tomorrow's card that Mark? I don't know. Have you handicapped it yet?
Yeah, I've had a handicap like
yeah. Anything? I mean, like not. Let's obviously we're not going to get like super in depth here because I mean we got like 5 minutes here, but any race or anything in particular that like stuck out to you? Maybe something to key in the late.
I think there's a couple of really interesting spots. I thought in the finale there's the 4 horse for it's Johnny V up for Tom Morley, horse getting on turf for the first time in the name of Griffin's Wharf, who I thought was really interesting. I know Tom's not crazy high percentage for first time turf, and this is a horse that they've campaigned pretty much primarily on or tried to campaign pretty much primarily on dirt. So but I thought that horse at a stupid price getting on turf for the first time has some tactical speed before they placed, and we know in these kind of races when Johnny V gets forward, people just kind of tend to sit off him and kind of let him go.
I wonder who said that.
Yeah, I wonder who that guy was that kept saying that. So I thought that horse was really interesting in that spot. I think if you're playing this pick six, you kind of have to pick your spots. I think in race 9, Rhetorical, the William Walden horse with the rat up, makes all the sense in the world, and is probably one that a lot of people are going to be singling. I have a hard time kind of getting past that horse. And I thought also in race 7, there's a Flavian Pratt up for Miguel, one
Make
horse
haste.
and Make Haste, who I thought was also a very interesting single. So I think it's one of those cards where I think both those two horses are very likely winners, and you have to decide, are you okay with those two and you can find prices other places? Are you okay with playing a skinny ticket, just eating both of those? Or do you play kind of an A-B structure where maybe you play most of your tickets with both of them winning, and then you play a couple of savers with trying to beat one or potentially both of them? So very interesting pick six sequence. I am very keyed up for it. Very excited to take a stab at the carryover. You got to love carryovers at Saratoga, because you know that $100,000 carryover is going to probably produce close to a 7-figure pick six pool, which is those are the scores. Even for me, those are the life changers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And $118,000 pick six carryover starting race 5, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the races that I'm interested in is race 6. It's a maiden race, but I love those. Couple of big names. One is Epic Desire. This is a horse for Todd Pletcher, who ran in debut at Keeneland going 4.5. But this is the full sibling to Adair Manor, actually. So interesting pedigree play. You also have a horse that Cherie DeVoe has in that race, Dr. Agni, who is out of the great Lady Eli. And this is going to be the first North American runner for Lady Eli, who's only really had European runners at this point. So some kind of big names there in that 6th race that I thought were just interesting from a pedigree standpoint, and worth making a note of. And like Mark said, I mean, Rhetorical's a horse that, is probably going to be a pretty easy single, I think, for a lot of people's tickets. And, certainly Miguel's horse, Make Haste, is my top choice. I already put my picks in, yesterday, maybe. I don't even know what day it is anymore. But I put my picks in a while ago for the Albany newspaper. So that was definitely my top choice in that race as well. So I definitely understand kind of maybe going skinny in those 2 legs. But then you have a maiden race where, hey, maybe you want to go for a little bit of chaos. Maybe there's a Cassie horse in that maiden race as well. That's a little bit interesting.
I love that Cassie horse. The 7-horse Orbit. Yeah. With Javi up, and Javi for Cassie is phenomenal percentage. So I thought that was a really interesting horse that kind of leans against the 2 you're talking about, the pedigree plays. Like those kind of races are fun where you have that calamity, right?
Exactly. And that horse, I mean, this is a Barry Spears special, which is he always likes to take the horse with the fastest gate work right before the race and debut. And this horse fired off a 47 and change bullet out of the gate. So, you love to see good gate speed out of that. So, we've talked about how the Cassie barn is firing on all cylinders. Horse has good turf pedigree. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. So, that's one where, maybe in race 6, you spread, even in a pick 6 ticket, you can still put an affordable ticket together. If you're singled in 2 other legs, you can go 4 or 5 deep potentially and still, be able to put together a, $72 ticket or something like that. That's not so, bloated that, you're calling up your buddies to go, in on a ticket share or something like that. And you can actually have some fun playing it yourself.
Cool. Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us on this. I know you got a lot of work to do, but why don't you kind of plug where people can find you?
Yeah, listen, if you're not familiar, you can find me on X at Failed to Menace. You can find me on Naira Bets at Naira Bets. We have the Naira Bets YouTube channel up as well. We've got a lot of great race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials. We have weekly programs. My colleague Kaylee Shapiro and the Hall of Famer Nick Zito have a tremendous podcast, the Right or Wrong podcast, every week. And so this coming week, we are going to be, Kaylee's going to be sitting down and talking with Nick and, drumroll please, Shug McGahee. Gonna have Shug on. Talk to him. Might have the DeVoe sisters lined up in the future as well with Sharif and Adrian. Gonna have a lot of great guests on the show. So very excited for that. That's always a lot of fun. The Win Play Show, talking about horse racing and handicapping news as well early in the week. We're gonna actually kick off Road to the Breeders' Cup series already, because a lot of these Breeders' Cup when you're in races are going to be starting to get run at Saratoga, at Del Mar, overseas as well. So getting people ready for Del Mar as well, and hope to see you guys out there where the turf meets the surf again this year. Hopefully, maybe, perhaps.
I will say I would say Kaylee was on Chase's show today with Barry. Amazingly good listen. Track that on the YouTube. They cover the Saturday card. They went through the full card. And Kaylee does a lot of talking. She knows her pedigrees really well, and she talks through a lot of the maiden races. And I think those are races which people historically have a hard time with. And she does a really good job talking through a lot of the pedigrees, a lot of the win early pedigrees, those kind of things. Really good listen. So if anybody has the free time, definitely tune in to Chase's show. Barry's on there, and with Kaylee, great listen.
Yeah,
mostly tune in for Barry though.
Mostly,
mostly
Barry.
Barry. Kaylee. Yeah. Ignore Chase. He's the worst.
And obviously check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I'm at Cherry Drank. Mark is at 2 Turns. Like I mentioned before, check out our friends at DRF with their full Saratoga packages, and save on PP's, clock reports, and all things Saratoga there. We'll have an episode of You've Gotta Be Shot-Tinning Me tomorrow with Mr. Slow and Steady, who's been in the chat tonight. Penn State Scott says he's going to be at Breeders' Cup, so he might have to find you. Awesome. Right now the plan, I hate to burst your bubble. The plan right now, Matthew, is for me and Mark to go to Caleb's house in Denver for a degenerate weekend, because they didn't like Del Mar that much last year.
Yeah, I hear you.
The Del Margarita though.
The Del Mars are great.
Better than the bread pudding at Keeneland, that's for damn sure.
Yeah,
now the banana pudding at Keeneland in the track kitchen, phenomenal. But the bread pudding, less so. Don't at me about that one. All right.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Let's make some money.